Welcome, everybody, to the American Space Museum. I'm Marquette. We're so glad you're with us to Stay Curious today. Beside me is becoming a fan favorite of Stay Curious, Mike Ciannilli. Mike, how are you,
Great to
sir?
see you. Great to see you, Mark. I appreciate that.
Well, great to see you back. We've become friends here a few months ago,
Yep,
and this is your
absolutely.
third appearance on Stay Curious.
Yep.
Mike is the director of Lessons Learned program you see there. It's officially Apollo, Challenger, Columbia, Lessons Learned. He's sort of the caretaker of the remnants of those wonderful vehicles and, more importantly, the memory of the lives of the wonderful people
Yep.
involved with those missions.
Absolutely.
How's it been going? You've been keeping busy.
Very busy.
Talked to you. You were up in the Cleveland area
Yep.
on the shores of Lake Erie. Not last week, was it?
Just last week, it's amazing.
What were you doing up there? Where were you?
We had safety meetings, so we're talking about different safety issues throughout the organization, throughout NASA itself. So having a lot of conversations about that. And then in the meantime, I spent a lot of time talking to folks on lessons learned and the stories that all of us that had the honor to work in the program and all those that rewatched the programs, sharing those knowledges to other industries. There's such a thirst for what we do in this business, stuff that works right and the stuff that doesn't work right. And it's always an honor to share those lessons learned, share the messaging and the stories for folks, and hopefully helping them out what they do.
What are some of the industries that stand out that are attracted to what you offer?
Yeah, well, the really interesting thing is more I get into this and realize that nearly every single industry can be helped by it. So you think of
Automotive industry's big up
exactly
there,
right.
and
So
rubber industry with Akron nearby. So
actually,
you talk to some of those folks up there.
absolutely. I went to last year, had a great conference involvement with the top automakers in the country and international. It was one of the largest auto conferences in the country and spent time up there giving a keynote address. And it was fantastic because the folks, for example, it's a great example because the folks that are going through this transition, partial transition from the ICE engine, right, internal combustion engine to the electric engines, they're facing a lot of challenges.
Hmm.
And so they're trying to deal with a very quickly evolving landscape, technology wise and otherwise. And so they're learning the lessons. Well, how did we take change at NASA? How did we go through different programs and what worked and what didn't? So that's one example, but it can go into the medical fields, oil and gas, construction, finance, sports. I met with NFL quarterbacks. So it's amazing how many
But wait a minute,
industries.
how you work with sports and NFL fans out
Yeah,
there saying, "Hold down, we're
hang on a
hungering,
second.
we're hungering for the season to start." But how
Well, it's amazing. There's always a connection, and that's the beautiful part of what we do in the space program. It touches so many people. So,
right?
for example,
Yeah.
in the sports world, I've had several different connections and collaborations with sporting organizations. And so, for example, take the story of Challenger, right? When you think of Challenger, you may not think of sports right off the bat. But when you start unpeeling the onion a little bit and taking a look at it, um, Challenger, one of the prime examples and lessons learned where folks were flying. We had a lot of schedule pressure to fly. The vehicle wasn't quite ready to fly in certain ways. We had issues, but yet the schedule took precedence, and we were doing things based on that schedule and taking risks. But when you open up the sporting world, unfortunately, there's many cases where athletes are not ready to play. Maybe they're recovering from injuries. Maybe they're not ready to go. Yet there's a lot of pressure in industries, right? You got
Hmm.
TV rights, you got games on the line, and so you hear a lot of stories of athletes being played, maybe
Betting
not
on the line is
100%, right?
unfortunately is
So
a
we had
factor.
great conversations of what we face in schedule pressure, how we push back and mitigate that, and then hopefully ways they can help folks in the sporting world that are trying to protect the lives and health of their athletes. And that's just one example.
Well, you're going to enjoy a conversation here with Mike. We want him on frequently, and you're always willing to do that. Marty's on our board here today. Marty, good to have you. The band's back together here. Marty and I, he was on vacation for 2 weeks and me a week. So, of course, in between that, we lost our director, Karen
Mm,
Conklin, to cancer, and her service is a week from Saturday.
mm.
We'll be talking about that, but thank you for the outpouring of love from all of you Stay Curious watchers out there for Karen. It is still a shock to us here, but we had our chairman of the board was on Stay Curious yesterday, Larry Ostarley, to remind everybody that we are uh, keeping everything status quo, And our mission is similar to yours, that we want to celebrate these missions that have pioneered space in our backyard of Brevard County here.
Mhm.
And along that is, of course, we have to talk about the tragedies. But Mike, we've always taken the high road of celebrating the lives of the people involved, and had experts talk about the structural things of them on there. But you go deeper than that.
A lot deeper. And lessons learned, when you look at lessons learned, you can learn from every single flight, even the flights that went seemingly spot on correct. And Marty from the Apollo days can certainly fill in a lot of blanks on that too, where missions went well, right? And they looked great on the headlines, but you peel back one or two layers of the onions, and sometimes we got a lot closer to a bad day than you may realize. So it really is
Oh,
good in
yes,
every
there were
career,
a
right?
lot of close calls,
It's
really.
like kind of getting home from work, driving your car. Well, maybe you had 4 or 5 close calls, and just because you got home doesn't mean that you couldn't learn something, have done a little better, right? So we always want to make sure we look at every single flight, Mark, not just the ones that didn't work, obviously wrong, and peel back that and really learn everything we can so we don't do this again.
Yeah, as you get to the space history, and you really, like we have, Marty and I, 4 years doing this, there were some close calls. In fact, I'll tell you, one close call, Marty, I was watching on YouTube last night, was somebody was showing me Charlie Duke, the Apollo 16 astronaut, reacting to the hoaxers out there. And he has always some calm things to put them in their place. But he and John Young, before they got back in the lunar module, had jumped up and see who could jump the highest in the air, like an Olympics. And Charlie Duke fell over on his back, and he said it was the scaredest he ever was in any moment of his astronaut career, because he realized he'd screwed up, and really could have maybe broke the PLSS, personal life support system. He said, I looked at the pressure gauge on my armrest, and everything was fine. And John Young said to me, that wasn't too smart, Charlie, to do that. Marty, you probably heard him talk about that at some of your Grumman things, have you?
No, I haven't heard that story.
Yeah. Oh, the video is there on the other side of the rover, so you don't really see what they're doing, and you hear what they're doing, and then you see him fall back. Yeah. So a lot of close calls on there. You're all going to enjoy. Today, like I said, with Mike. Please, Chachi is his nickname, and Marty, if you got some questions to spit out there, I'm trying to do it on my phone. It's a little efforting for me, but we want to let everybody know that we're proud that Stay Curious is sponsored by Bid Again Auctions. Chuck Jeffrey is our collections analyst with over 30 years experience in space memorabilia. Thank you for moving that billboard over there, Marty. And seriously, you've got a question about something you own, take a picture of it, send it to Chuck at AmericanSpaceMuseum.org, or there's his phone number. And we'll be talking about the next auction that's in the queue here. And there's the slide I put together for you, Chachi, up there. Yeah, it was about 10, 11 years ago there. That's what you look like.
A few less wrinkles I see, Mark.
Yeah,
I don't know.
that's you in front of
I'm counting
one.
wrinkles, and I see less in that picture there.
I know, and we look like that until we look in the mirror,
Yeah,
right?
that's right.
My
That's
hair's
right.
a jet black, and myself, I get the Marquette bags under my eyes. It seems to be hereditary.
It's all that
when I
wisdom
look at the
coming
men.
through.
It certainly
It's
is.
all that wisdom coming through, so
And
it's well
well,
learned.
I get my wisdom from talking to experts like you, Chachi. So, you got a question for him about any of the tragedies? Of course, we're talking about be appropriate, okay, on those sort of things. But you have actually been in the bowels of the your office, I guess, is where Columbia is in the
Right.
VAB building, right?
I was just there this morning, and it's always so emotional walking in. And I've had the honor to walk in countless times over the years. And every time you walk in, it's a mixed emotions for me, because you get faced with what happened. But in my case, Columbia feels like an old friend. And I spent as a kid building models of Columbia, entering science fairs, and then my career had the honor to always be assigned to Columbia. It always seemed to work that way. on the Columbia team and the final launch team for Columbia. So Columbia is a friend. It feels like a close
Are
friend.
you on
So
the launch team for
for
107?
107,
Uh-huh.
and so it feels like you're seeing a friend again. So there's a comfort to it, but also a constant remembrance of we've got to do better. We've got to make sure we learn and pass this on to folks so they don't have to experience what we experienced.
Uh, I'll get to that question here about what's going on in space right now, and get what you can give us as your opinion on it.
Sure.
But yeah, it's I wanted to say we walk by the huge photographs of the crew 4 or 5 times a day here going through the museum, and I'm always looking over there at those pumpkin suits, those Columbia, and then the blue flight suits of Challenger, and just what a change that was. Okay, to go from the blue suits to flight suits, just wear what you want to wear, but we got to look like a band, like we're together, so everybody wear the blue, to something that might keep you a little bit alive in the event of a tragedy. But yeah, it's what I am proud that the museum represents, that everlasting legacy. Now, I understand that they're moving the Columbia exhibit from the VAB. Is it correct? Two parts of it will be in the Neil Armstrong building, the old ONC. Tell us about that,
Well, it's
Chachi.
under discussion, so there's no firm plans yet.
Okay.
And the VAB has become a operational hotspot now, so we're ramping up operations.
And why is
again.
that?
Well, we've got Artemis coming in, so Artemis Hardware is processing. We've got commercial companies that are showing interest in different parts of the VAB. So there's a renewed interest after the space shuttle program. Things are a little bit slower, and now things are kind of heating up for the next stage of space exploration. So with more activities, there's more things. So you really want to make sure you're protecting your people that are entering the building, and you don't want to put anybody extra in any types of additional harm. So.
Well, you have the solid fuel boosters in there, right?
Right.
Part of it. So that's
Right.
a hazard in itself there.
Yeah.
Trying to find the comments as I can see us talking there, Chachi, but I
Okay.
don't see where the comments
We'll just
are.
pick all the easy questions, Mark. We'll keep the.
Yeah, well, Marty's keeping track of that. That's why we've been a great team the last 4 years on this. By my ciphering, this is our 1,115th episode in 4 years. So
Doesn't seem like a day after.
thank you, sir.
No,
And you're a big part of it. Why? I know Dave Stengy's watching, and why can't I get those on there?
Well,
Questions, but Marty will tell me that. I wanted to mention that. Show you a. Yeah, go ahead, Marty. Throw that question out there. While I
Got a
fumble.
question from Steve Jokum. As far as I know, the majority of the Apollo 1 command module, remember, it just moved on me, are still housed at Langley. Is there any point where NASA might move those to KSC for compiling with the shuttle remains?
Wow, great question, Steve. Currently, there's not. Right now, and you're exactly right. The remnants of the Apollo 1 command module, where we lost our Apollo 1 crew, is housed at Langley in a facility up there. We did bring the hatch back, the hatch on the capsule, and brought that back to KSC, and that's actually integrated in an exhibit at the KSC Visitor Complex in the Saturn V building. So if you ever get a chance to visit KSC, in the back of the building towards the nose of the rocket, you'll see a very beautiful, poignant exhibit dedicated to the memory of the Apollo 1 crew. So you'll see that hatch there, but the rest of the capsule, Marty, is actually still located at Langley. No current plans to move it, although if folks are interested in that, we certainly would entertain ideas.
And thank you for that question, Steve Jokums. He's a great supporter of the American Space Museum and our Shuttle Fest. We're going to see a picture of the entrance to that, and I thought one of these times we have you back, we'll just talk about the lessons learned of that Apollo. Very moving tribute there that you guys have there.
Absolutely.
With there. Marty, go ahead.
Got a question from Tom Colbert. Do you think SpaceX and Boeing have taken the lessons learned from NASA?
Great question. Well, we certainly make it available. So, what's interesting is that when we started this program, we focused on the NASA internal programs, right? The close ones to us. And as we start finding success, we expanded it outward as we could to the commercial entities. I can tell you up front, I have met in several Boeing functions where their folks have been invited to share information with their employees, which I appreciate. SpaceX has reached out and has a lot of interaction with SpaceX. We've had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of those folks through the room. And actually, the SpaceX launch director strongly encourages all of his Florida ops people to come through my program and spend time talking. And I was just at Dragon Operations at the Port Canaveral a couple of months ago talking to the folks that do recovery. So they have reached out in a tremendous way and want to learn those lessons. So, where they're available for them and every other commercial space or anybody else that's related to that wants to come and hear something, just to let us know. We're happy to do that. But it's exciting because these folks are on the forefront of the next leap in space, right? The commercial aspects of space. And sometimes they do things a little different. They talk a little different language. So we kind of figure out, we do the language translation between each other. But what doesn't change, the rockets may change, the language may change a little bit, but what doesn't change is they want to get their vehicles home safe. They want to get their crews home safe and sound. And we want that to happen. So we bond in a very important way on the same exact mission.
Very cool. You were talking about the recovery team of SpaceX out at Port Canaveral.
Yeah.
Certainly it's fun to watch those barges come in with that.
It's amazing.
And but your resume is you were a recovery director during the shuttle era.
Yeah.
So not only do you have the lessons learned stuff, you've got the actual experience of you were involved with bringing the SRBs back, or what was that?
Well,
or the actual
and
landing of the orbiter?
Yeah, exactly. And I love that because inside there's an ops guy, right?
Yes,
Engineering
you're
and
an ops guy. That's what I want to emphasize.
so-
He's not a bureaucrat chosen to run this program. You were a shuttle worker like Marty and so many of them.
And it really is. And I consider it an honor because in my early part of my career, I spent about 10 years doing engineering. I was in the engineering phases.
Where'd you get your degree at?
Florida Tech.
Florida Tech.
Florida
Yeah,
Tech,
I
yep,
feel like
down the street here.
Florida Institute of Technology.
Technology, yep. Back
It's
in the
grown
day.
a little bit since you got your
A
diploma.
lot big since I got, yeah, it was a little bit
Yeah.
different back then. I might not recognize it. I
Yeah.
went back today. It's changed a lot more. So I've got the engineering piece, which I loved. I spent about 10 years in the ops world as an asset test director and as land recovery director. So I love that. And I found myself in the safety. So it's kind of the third leg of the stool. And I really appreciate having the ability to kind of see things from each of those three perspectives. And as LRD, land recovery director, we're really involved in if something didn't go right for launch, which was part of it. So we set countdown if we had to do an emergency return to launch site, if we had to ditch the orbiter in the ocean, or if we landed transatlantic. That was something that I was responsible for with the team. So we did that. And then also on landing, if the orbiter didn't make it to the shuttle landing facility, right? Deorbit's on the other side of the world, and you got to find this little teeny runway.
Yeah.
And we always nailed it, and just tremendous credit to the pilots and astronauts and everybody else that worked on it. But something could have happened, right? So if we ditched in Titusville or somewhere else, we had to have plans, and we practiced those plans to go get the crew into safe things. So, and then plus normal operations of safe in the orbiter. So there's a lot more to it, but that was back in the day.
Yeah, we had programs about safe in the orbiter, and I know you know Dean Shaw.
Oh yeah, great friend.
The
good guy.
GOM, Ground Operations Manager for. We'll get you and Dean on together, maybe.
It'd be
That'd
wonderful.
good because,
Dean is a gentleman.
he's president of the Veterans Memorial.
And what a job he's done
Museum
over
out
there. What a
Yeah, he
tremendous
has.
job.
And he's become a good business friend of mine, like you, on there. And the Transoceanic Abort Landing Site, TAL.
Yeah.
That was quite a program.
Transatlantic.
Huh?
It's transatlantic, not transoceanic.
Oh, you look it up, Marty. Transoceanic Abort Landing Site.
TAL.
That's what the abort is for.
Okay.
We'll check it out there. No, Steve Jokums is already looking it up for us there. But we've got such a great group of smart viewers out there. Stay curious. So Marty's got another one with another great question.
Yeah, Manned Space is asking, were there any lessons learned in connection with the damage inflicted on Skylab during its launch? Were there any practical steps taken from those lessons learned?
I love that question.
Yeah.
I absolutely
Who's
love
that from?
Manned Space. I
Okay.
always forget his name.
All right.
Well, Man Space, thank you.
Oh,
for,
that's Mitch Rothman.
Mitch, okay.
He's got a wonderful Facebook page, NASA Manned Space. He talks strictly Mercury, Gemini, and Apollo.
I love that question. Thank you, Mitch, because in general, I've got a soft spot in my heart for Skylab. Most people don't even know Skylab existed, that program.
I
It was
know,
sandwiched
it's-
between Shuttle and Apollo. A tremendous program of 3-man flights, and of course the station launch flight, Skylab 1. Tremendously successful program, tremendous amount learned. You think about what we learned in Skylab, which allowed us to take that and go forward with ISS and other programs, but often forgotten. And part of that, which he's referencing, is on the launch of Skylab 1, we had problems with the space station. One of our solar arrays was jammed and didn't deploy. And the other one was ripped off, basically. So the station went up with, had less power than expected. And the micrometeoroid shield had problems too, right? We lost. So we had overheating on the station in the early days of that mission, plus power issues and others. So there's a lot to be doing that. I try to incorporate all lessons learned. We focus on Apollo 113, Challenger, and Columbia, but every chance I get, I'm always trying to sneak in. That people always ask for those big ones. So it's like kind of like when you're going to a concert, right? They want the favorite hits and they want the big hits. But I always try to take an opportunity to share other lesser known, because there's so much to learn from those. And Skylab is one of those. So
We're going to talk a little more about
Yeah.
Skylab there. Marty, thanks for these questions there. Like I said, we got such an intelligent group of viewers, and we're so proud of that.
yes.
Keep them coming there. I wanted to go through a few slides here. You get to be with some of our friends that we
yeah.
got to know there. Actually had a meal with everybody there, except for Charlotte, is Mike Lineback's wife there. And we've got Jonathan Ward with Tom Jones, astronaut there.
Yeah.
All really just tremendous earthlings. I'll tell you that right now.
Amazing people.
They are. And did you help Jonathan and Mike at all with the book Bringing Columbia Home? Were you?
They were so kind to invite me to be part of that. Jonathan's a brilliant author, and you can read that book, the Elaine's Collins biography.
Yes, which I have not yet, but
Broken the Glass. Just amazing. And his other books on the history of the space program. I'm just a super Jonathan fan.
Yeah.
He just captures it.
He is
from an
one
essence.
Renaissance man. You do Facebook.
Yeah,
And
well,
you see Jonathan on Facebook.
all over the world. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's
Not only
sharing-
that, in his
yeah.
backyard, he's taking you to the universe with the moon shots and sunspots, and then he's modeling. Got a model going on. Jonathan, you the man. He
Yeah.
is the Renaissance man out there.
He's
I love it. I
super
don't know where
great.
when he sleeps.
Yeah.
Actually, but
And he communicates so well. And Mike is just a mentor and a friend and a hero. So when you get a chance, and Marty can speak to this as well. And Mark, and you've met so many people in what you do, probably more than all of us put together. But there's so many amazing people as part of the program, and they're not maybe the names on billboards on TV, or you see their names flashed
Right.
on TV, but they're unbelievably brilliant. They're kind. They're soft-spoken. You have to force them sometimes to tell you what their brilliance is or what they
a lot
did.
of humility I
of
see, and a
humility.
lot of the higher up the chain of command, I see the more humility, and
It really
some
is.
great leaders like Mr. J. Honeycutt, for example.
Yeah, and when you go back, and this will be, and Marty will certainly hopefully back me up on this one, when you go back to the previous generations, even to Apollo, I have tried with friends of mine to have them say the word I and tell me a story, or they won't. It is we accomplished
Yeah.
this, we did this, and I try to do that, and they will not use those words because they're just, they saw it as a team effort. They respected everybody. Doesn't matter if you were the janitor or if you're the lead engineer. Doesn't make a difference. Everybody played a role in those flights, and they served as mentors, and to this day serve as mentors to me of how you approach this. But that's the level. Just brilliance, but they have this just soft demeanor of, we did this for the nation, we did this for our friends.
Well, I've learned that being here 7 years, Chachi. It's we here. I might be doing more than 50% of something, but the museum's paying for the lights. So this is what we're all about here. Marty has been indispensable. First corrected me that pad 39B was on Kennedy Space Center property, not Cape Canaveral property, and stuff like that. And I remember, Marty, I was getting the Cape and KSC messed up. And
You
all
got to
that
start
stuff.
somewhere,
And
right?
again,
That's okay.
That's right. I'm a quick learner, though, and that's my Alzheimer's edge, is that I keep retaining more of this knowledge here. Let's talk a little more about Chachi here. Yeah, Marty, go ahead, buddy.
Yeah, Mark, but there are times that I'm wrong. Like I was wrong today with Tal.
Okay.
You were right.
Transoceanic abort landing site. And I thought A had to be for Atlantic Ocean in there too, in there. So, oh, today's Jerry Carr, Skylab 4's birthday.
Oh,
Thank
wow.
you, Mitchell. And I kind of knew that, and we've got a picture to show of Jerry here. So thanks. He's really on top of it. He's a new friend that we made through Chris Calley, the artist, and you'll meet Chris at Shuttlefest in
Okay.
April on there.
Excellent.
Wanted to talk a little more about Chachi. Here is a beautiful picture of you. Those of you who've been at the Kennedy Space Center Visitors Complex and been to the tribute in the Atlantis building, I'm already getting goosebumps just talking about Chachi. It's just I've probably been in there, I'm no kidding, 50 times. And it's just something that I have to go see because you cannot believe how honorable this is and humbling. And what's on each side there, Chachi? Tell everybody.
Yeah, so when you first walk in, and Forever Remembered, it was really a way to introduce yourself to the crew. We wanted the folks that were coming through to meet the crew members, not just as heroes, because we know they're the heroes, we know that they're Renaissance, we know that they're, tremendously accomplished, but we wanted to bring the human element out to show that they're the people. They're like you and I.
Columbia's on the left there,
Columbia's on the
and
yeah,
that's
Columbia's
right.
on the right going in, and Challenger's on the left.
Oh yeah.
Yep. And as you walk through, so each of the crew members on each of those flights, it's a case of their personal mementos. So these are items that I had the honor to work very closely to each of the family members, and we tried
Chachi
to.
worked with every family member to choose things in there.
Yeah.
And last year we highlighted each of the cases
Oh, okay, excellent.
during the dates of the tragedy on there, which I think is the best way to handle it. And at the end is a famous quote by President Reagan. To paraphrase it, the future is not for the faint-hearted, the future is for the brave.
Exactly.
Did you help choose that?
Yes, we went through a bunch of different quotes, and I wanted a Reagan quote because that was a seminal moment when the president comforted the nation.
That
And
was
we were
that,
shocked,
that was a tearjerker.
and he gave that Oval Office address, and that it was all of us having being comforted and telling us what happened, and he set the path for it. So that speech is the hard part. Was the speech is full of so many amazing quotes. We had to set them that would fit and be poignant, but we could have picked probably 20 quotes and made it work.
And then you turn to the right, and my God, you just can't believe what you're looking at. And Chachi, you told me you actually went to the silo to pick out that piece of Columbia to display.
Yeah,
I mean, Challenger. Excuse
Challenger,
me.
and here, Mark, was the overall emphasis.
That's true. Tell him I'm not making that up.
That's true story. Yeah,
Yeah.
and the reason, the purpose of this area was to create a church-like spiritual environment, and that may sound kind of strange in our world as engineers and scientists, but we really wanted to feel like a very spiritual place. And you'll notice in each of those chambers, it's designed with the right materials and lighting that you lose dimensionality. So you'll see the Columbia windows floating at you, Challenger, and I wanted the feeling that these pieces are not on your same plane. They're not with you, right? You can't reach out and touch them, but they're letting you observe them. So it's almost like a different dimension. That was the artistic reason behind that. And we had some amazing lighting directors and other folks help us achieve that goal.
It is so reverent, church-like. Bob Cabana even said so when I saw him in there one day. The windscreen, folks, still has Louisiana pine needles in it.
Yep.
In there. I mean, that really got to me when I saw that in there. Marty, you have a question?
I have two questions. Got a question from Dave Stange. Mike, have you read Challenger by Adam Higginbotham?
Hey, Dave. Yeah, actually, starting it now, which was interesting. Adam was
A new book, is it?
a new book out for Challenger, and Adam was so kind, reached out, and I sat down with him for several sessions while he was doing his book prep. So we met on different locations, different dates, and actually talked about it. So we did a lot of that, and he was kind enough to put me in acknowledgments for participating in the book. And it was a beautiful experience because not only did it bring stuff out of me, but I learned things, and it brings the story again to another generation of folks. So every time we see any kind of a vehicle that's done correctly, that delivers the information, about the crew, the vehicle, the lessons, and just the story, the human element story is just something special. So Adam, I had very thankful to just be a little part of that, to share some thoughts with him. And I have, and I'm in the process of reading it. There's a lot. It's a big book. So, and I'm one of those with those stories, I got to read every word. So I'm a little slow on the reading part, but
Well, we'll look forward to that. I did hear that book come out, and since you were involved in it, I always go like, really, we need another book on Challenger, but you seem to endorse it. So,
well, I can't endorse anything, right?
I mean, you understand why I say that, though?
Right.
I mean,
Well, right, and I, from my perspective, and I think what's interesting and different, there's different perspectives to look at. So if you tell a story, Marty tells a story, everybody comes with their own perspective. So sometimes the main facts or figures, you maybe have heard that before, but there's always, if you look close enough, a little nuance to something, right? A little bit different. Like a film, right? Every director approaches it or doing a film differently, or a screenwriter. So the story might be the same story, World War II, or pick your story, but it's told from a slightly different perspective or vantage point. So you get something different out of it. I think books and movies could be like that. So again, there's always an opportunity to learn.
great. Well, we'll be checking that new book out. What was the name of it again?
Challenger.
Just Challenge.
Yeah.
Okay. The author?
Adam Higginbotham.
Okay.
again,
Oh, yeah,
can't-
Higginbotham.
And again, I can't endorse anything, and I'm not endorsing it, but I'm just saying it was an honor to be a part of.
Because when I saw that name, I thought of Joan Higginbotham, you know, the astronaut on there. We're talking with Mike Ciannilli here, known as Chachi on the campus at Kennedy Space Center, and you actually work for the Washington NASA group, right, in there. And we've got another question that Marty has from one of you great listeners on our UCX family microphone there. Take it away, Marty.
Got a question from Tom Colbert. Any lessons learned after Story Musgrave didn't strap in during STS-80 landing?
I love your audience. They know a lot of stuff.
Yeah, tell those that
They
don't know
the
what they're
inside
talking
scoops
about.
and,
A story's last
we
flight.
probably should get Story in here to tell it better than
We
I could
hope
about
to
long
one
shot.
day.
That would be a wonderful thing, and I'd love to see him again. I met him many years ago as a kid, so it'd be wonderful. And
He's
then,
living in Cape Canaveral in a condo now.
really.
Oh yeah.
Well, maybe we'll have to find
We'll
a way
have
to.
to, we'll hook him up with
We'll
you
have to
there.
get him in here and
Just turned 89 years old.
really.
Legendary 7-time astronaut, Story Musgrave. So on his last flight, he did this. You tell the story.
Rumor says. All right.
Yeah, rumor says.
I'll preface it that way. Rumor
Yes, right.
has it that
this NASA Washington official says that he's heard through the
yes,
grapevine.
it's one of those stories you may or may not hear. He may or may not have been in a seat the whole way into reentry. How does that sound?
That's yes.
Characterize it pretty well.
Yes, that does cover.
And Story's just an amazing guy. I mean,
Was there any lessons learned? Is what Tom's asking there, or anything that you heard about?
well, it'd be interesting to ask the chief of the astronaut office if there's lessons learned on that procedure happening again. I'll let them speak about that. But it's interesting, and that's why it'd be good to get Story in here, because stories like that, you don't always get the full, no pun intended, story, right?
Right.
Because it's not an official procedure, right, that was followed. So you have post-test briefings and stuff, how it was. So it'd be really interesting to hear what the real scoop was, and how did he experience that? How did he feel doing that? When you hear it, you kind of go, wow, that's an interesting experience nonetheless. So I don't particularly teach any of the lessons learned on that. Although you probably could dive into a couple different directions with doing something like that.
Well, I got a new book. I'm going to check that. That was 89, STS 89, which was
80.
880. You let me know when Cliff Watson pops up there, when he wakes up in Pomona, Australia there. Marty, we've got a great friend, Cliff Watson, sat in this chair. I was here in April for the eclipse, his
wonderful.
second trip to America.
Excellent.
Spent 2 weeks here on the Space Coast on there. The story of Musgrave that Tom refers to is that supposedly an astronaut unbuckled during re-entry, during weightlessness, to feel his body succumb to gravity that put him gently down in a chair. And when he popped up from the mid deck up to the behind the pilot and the commander. They were a little surprised to see him, asking him what he was doing, and he probably Story has a big ego, and why not? He has what 5 doctorate degrees, and I have met him for 5 days at the Winter Star Party.
Mm.
He hung out with us in Key
Oh,
West at the Miami Club about 20
cool
years
is that?
ago, and I think he's the most intelligent human being I've probably ever stood beside.
I mean, you talk about Renaissance, right?
Yeah.
Renaissance person. Holy mackerel! I mean, you look at you're exactly right. You look at his degrees, what he accomplished, and then you look at his personal life, and then even after retirement as an astronaut, right in kind of the science field, works with palm trees. And
Yeah,
grows I mean, so you
he
got.
was one a world expert in palm trees in Kissimmee.
I mean, so you think about someone like that, and it's really inspiring because, you know, we all do the best we can in our lives, but how cool is it to really get as much as you can out of life and to have all these varied interests? And even though you're a doctorate degree here and you got degrees over here and you're accomplished astronaut and everything else that he has, and to put together now even diversified and do that. And that's what we tried to do in Forever Remembered, Mark, was when we built those cases really to show the folks that these folks are really that diverse. They're Renaissance people. They may be accomplished astronaut and engineer, but they're also a classic, a pianist, or they're a karate expert, or you know something else. It's just amazing how there's so many angles to these folks.
We love Julie Payette, the Canadian astronaut who's been out here. She is a opera singer in the Bach choral up there, and I've listened to her singing. Just amazing. Julie Payette, Canadian astronaut. She'll be around, I think, in November, I think, Marty, somewhere in there. Mike Ciannilli here received numerous awards throughout your career, including the prestigious Silver Snoopy Award. You received many awards on this Forever Remembered tribute there, including, I mean, this is small potatoes interviewing you here on our humble podcast. You've been on the Today Show, right? And of course, Adam and the other guy on The Edge on NASA have of course, talked to you and so forth. You've done probably interviews ad nauseum TV stations around the country. Am I right?
Yeah, I've had a lot of opportunities to talk around the country and around the world on TV stations and print around the world, and it's so. Again, all what it does for me, it just reinforces that people love space out there, and it doesn't matter if they're in Brevard County or they're in the state of Florida where the action happens, or in America even. I've had folks reach out to me around the world, sending emails and questions and explain what things mean to them. And it really is just, it's humbling. I mean, it really is, Mark. And folks like, I'm sure Marty can again attest to this, is, you know, we do it with a love and a passion. We have that hands-on career where we're actually doing the work. But when you have folks that are on the other side of the globe and they're so impassioned of what we're doing to go into space and explore space, it really just makes you just, again, humble is probably the only best word I could use for it. It just really makes you realize how important it is what we're doing and how much responsibility there is to get it right, because a lot of people are watching.
Absolutely right, Chachi. We find here at the American Space Museum, Europeans really love the shuttle era and are fascinated about it. We've made some Dutch friends, Belgium friends, you know, of course, French and German friends in here, but a lot of Dutch come in here. And we're happy about that, Marty.
You better say Scottish and.
I better say Scottish, right? Shouldn't I? Robert Law is up in Dundee, Scotland.
The European
UK.
continent.
Have you been to the UK?
I have
Talking
not
lessons
been there.
learned?
Not yet. Not yet. I've done a virtual work
There,
with
there you go.
folks in the Royal Navy and
Robert
stuff.
Law up there in Scotland. Get
you
your pass the hat around there and get some airfare for Chachi to come up there and talk to you. We can make it happen. I'm trying to get Mike Baker down to New Zealand, since he said he'd like to go there. We've got Scott Polk, who's in New Zealand, and Cliff Watson's over there in Pomona on there.
Well, and it's again, it goes back to that same seminal point. Like, you have so many viewers because you have a great product here and you share so much with them, and you have a great fan base built.
Well, thank you.
And folks really find connections to space. And you said New Zealand, Australia, there's connections everywhere. It really is. And the part that I get excited about, the lessons learned that I do, there's lessons learned that apply to all those industries. I see you can place rocket ship with race car. It's the same, right? After 2 minutes, we talk in the same language. And if we can help our allies and our partners, not only here, but around the world, then that's a special thing we can do too.
Well, I know you're enjoying this conversation. Where else can you talk to the person that is in charge of uh, the physical vehicles of Challenger, Columbia, and touting that around our country and around the world? Nowhere. So tell your friends to get with us and watch Stay Curious. By the way, friends out there, when's the last time you Googled your name? All right, I put NASA Mike Ciannilli in there, and poof, poof. Look at this handsome guy
Kind of scary what you
with the
find, isn't
black
it?
hair and so forth. What I was really interested in is this guy above my head, Ernie Reyes. Boy,
Mhm.
I got to
Yeah.
know Ernie Reyes. He passed away a couple years ago during COVID. You're giving Ernie remember Ernie? Tell me
I
about
certainly
him.
do. What
Tell
a
the
j-
folks a little bit about Ernie
I'll
Reyes.
tell you an Ernie story or two. When I was first starting my program, I was having a lot of large scale events at Kennedy Space Center. So I wanted to bring in and talk about these things. So I wanted to do one on Apollo 1. And so, Apollo 1 was a long time ago.
Hmm.
So there's not a lot of folks around anymore that were involved in Apollo 1 and less folks that actually can communicate the message well. So Ernie's one of those folks at the time that was
Ernie's office was outside the wall, where the other side of the wall was the command module.
command module, right? And so I reached out, so some friends and colleagues connected us together, and I reached out and I wanted to learn about Apollo 1 because I wanted this event to be the best it could be, and I wanted it told in the first person story. I just didn't want to, if I could, I wanted people that were there that day and involved in it to tell their story, not just me telling it. It's more important that they tell their story, and I was going to be the conduit for that. And I wanted to learn more. And Ernie, the first thing he said is, "Come on over to my house." It wasn't much long in the conversation. It was, not only do I want to help you, come over to my home. And I spent several times going to Ernie's house, and his very kind wife, and sitting there with him in his den area and just talking and absorbing these amazing stories that he would share and experiences he had. And it helped me so much, Mark, to not only understand the stories of what I was trying to communicate, but the context and the feelings behind those from a gentleman who you could see by his reaction still felt those emotions. And he was so kind. And then I wanted him to come out to Kennedy Space Center, which has been a long time for him. Please come out and come up on stage. And I want you to come up there. And if you're willing to share your stories and answer some questions from some folks. And he was gracious enough to come out with his family and come up on stage. So I gave him an award for that participation, and still giving at his age and time. And so he was another example of
That's
just
the gentleman
legends.
right there, Ernie Reyes.
Ernie Reyes, just an absolute gentleman, brilliant, and after all those years, still wanted to contribute
Yeah.
something to make our program better. And so Ernie, thank you. I'm sure you're watching over us and
Yeah,
and
God bless
helping.
you and your family. You
Yeah.
know, I've seen Apollo space workers that were on Pad 34. They did want to talk about it.
Yeah.
They did not want to talk about it. And Ernie freely talked about it. And he was involved with getting those gentlemen out of the capsule. He was there the whole time. He was a night shift person, so when the 6 o'clock accident happened, he was told just to come in later on your own shift, and he said his desk was a mess with fire extinguishers and just everything thrown all over the place, and it was just. But he was also a ombudsman sort of person for NASA. He was the Mr. Fix It. The one Ernie Reyes story that I'll tell real quick is that he told us, and I think we've got it on YouTube or Facebook. He never did a formal Stay Curious with us. We recorded some other things that we put on there. It was before Stay Curious. He passed away. When North American finished the command module, they needed to get it out of the building and put it on a vehicle to send it over here to Kennedy Space Center.
Mhm.
The door was too small to get the command
Okay.
module out of the room. And they sent Ernie out there to figure
How
out,
to do it.
to make sure that when they took the door apart and enlarged it to get it out there, that they didn't hurt anything. Swear to God, Ernie told me that story.
One of those guys, but he had that personality, I could definitely see that, the personality to want to
Hmm.
get to a solution, right? Let's go
Yeah.
figure this out together. So,
And one of the first Hispanic
yeah.
Americans hired
Mhm.
out there
Yeah.
in the 60s. And, we'll talk about that another time. Chachi,
Mhm.
the diversity of NASA, they've been world leaders in that.
Absolutely.
No doubt about it, right?
Absolutely. And tip of the spear, which has been, I mean,
Yeah.
it took
Uh,
the whole world a little bit to embrace some of this, but because it shows that the perspectives we bring,
Uh-huh.
we really don't. I mean, as someone who had the honor to lead the launch team, parts of my career, you wanted every perspective and every information coming to you. You just didn't want the company line or the popular opinion. You wanted every perspective coming to you because you didn't know where that hidden gem was going to be. Either you're going to catch something wrong, or stop something bad from happening. So that the diversity of that, I always say the diversity of thought, and it's not just the diversity of the crowd, right? Just what we look like in our backgrounds. But one thing I do, and thank you for kind of a segue unintendedly, is in my lessons learned, I talk a lot about the diversity of thought and the diversity of dissenting opinion. And
hmm.
that is unbelievably critical, and perhaps a whole other show on that one, but it is absolutely essential for safe mission
Yeah, let's
operations
work
and
up
success.
something on that because,
Um,
yeah, having different opinions, whether they're,
yeah,
even crazy opinions, can
yeah,
still uh,
yeah.
lead down a path that maybe you need to just glance at.
Absolutely. And it's hard. I mean, and like we can go into statistics and all that in a different time, but if people don't have that feeling to exhibit that, then there's real no diversity, right? You
Hmm.
got to have the diversity of thought, dissenting opinion, freedom of speech, if you will, where people can voice their opinions. They may not be a popular opinion. They may cost delays. They may cost financial impacts. But if you don't have that openness, man, you are flying blind in what you're doing.
Hmm. Well, I think Marty's got another question, but let me show a couple other images here, Marty, real quick.
Mhm.
We got is our green screen, the July launch of STS 135. Of course, that was Endeavor. Have you been out to see? There's a picture of it after it landed for the last time, and this is this was sort of an impromptu situation. Tell us about that. You are.
Over on the side over here, I think the,
Oh, I grabbed the wrong picture, the wrong close up
yep,
there.
just a
There's
couple
Ann
people over.
Miklos on the left.
Ann's
We
very
see here in
special.
Terry White.
Yeah.
You're to the right of that, but
Yep.
just you regular space workers who we refer to as national treasures followed your beloved bird back to the. Oh, that's Atlantis. Yeah,
That's
your
Atlantis.
beloved bird back to the hangar. I said Endeavor the last flight, so don't stop typing there. Neil
We knew what you
1040.
meant. We knew what you meant.
Yeah, I got it. I got it right there. I see Atlantis on the side there. But yeah, that had to be a moment.
That was just a bittersweet day. Overwhelmingly emotion was flowing.
Chachi, you're right there over my shoulder,
Yep,
right
right
there
there.
in a white shirt.
Yep, you got me perfect. And that was it was just emotional, right? I mean, I could spend an hour in the whole day, but just suffice to say, just before this, we had got the crew off, and then a couple of us got the honor to go on board. So it was a live spaceship. Everything's powered up. The fuel cells are powered up. The electrical power. Everything is still running. It's still a live spaceship. And I'll never forget climbing on board just after the crew had got off, and I had the honor and opportunity to sit in the commander's seat.
Wow.
And the emotion is like electricity flowing through. And I remember sitting in the commander's seat, and every time I was in the space shuttle, I had an honor to be in the space shuttle many times, different ones. But this was the last time, and you realize this is the last time.
Wow.
It wasn't going to be the next flight we were going to be on board. This is the last flight, and sitting there, everything's lit from landing, and you're looking
Wow.
around, and then you look out the window, and I remember looking out the window like it was yesterday, and you see the center line of the runway, and you didn't want to leave. I could have stayed in there for the next 3 months, right? It was such a beautiful moment, but it came with the realization of this is it. This is the last time there's going to be one of these vehicles on this runway after landing. This is the last time somebody's ever going to see this view. So then, getting out of the crew module, there were a few of us still there, and we had a tour back to the orbital processing facility. We had planned a huge celebration near the VAB and the OPF's orbital processing facility to greet Atlantis, which is a few miles down the road. But I was one of the ones, and I'm sure others felt that I can't let go. We're going to walk our girl home, right? We're going to walk our girl home. So I remember it was the middle of July. It was hot. I remember it was steaming hot. but you didn't feel it. You wanted to be there. It didn't matter how hot the summer heat was. You wanted to walk her back to the crowd, and it was just an emotional feeling every single step. And then when we came around the corner, and then you see this crowd assembled at the OPF, and they just erupted for Atlantis.
Oh, really?
This celebratory feeling. Again, a bittersweet. You wish you had a lot more flights to fly her, but it was a bittersweet, emotional moment.
July 21st, 2011.
Yeah.
Of course, it landed right before dawn. If it had gone one more orbit, it would have landed in daylight. Did you ever talk to Commander Chris Ferguson about sitting in his seat?
And his seat,
I know you know Chris. I'm sure you met him.
I thanked him for warming it up for me. So
Did you? Did you? Okay. You told him I went back and kept the seat warm.
I just had to
for
make
you.
sure
Okay.
you deconfigured everything properly, Chris. No, I'm just kidding. I wouldn't be able to do that. But no, it was.
You've talked to him about it, though?
I've talked to Chris, and a great gentleman.
Oh yeah,
Great
he's a
gentleman,
local
and
celebrity now, right?
He's gone and a super nice guy.
Yeah.
We talked about that. He had the
Hall of Fame astronaut now with Sandy
Just-
Magnus.
just a legend.
I was on this, and
he was involved in other subsequent endeavors after the shuttle program.
he would have been on the Boeing Starliner
Yeah.
instead of Butch.
Yep.
But he stepped down for personal reasons as commander of that
Yep.
a few years back on there. I'm enjoying this conversation, and we're burning up almost an hour here, and I racked up a couple slides that, as usual, Chachi's so good just to be off the cuff, and that's what I think our viewers like about Stay Curious, is they know I don't come in with the big old what do you call it, the teleprompter and all that sort of stuff. And
And that's the space program. I mean, again, I'll reach out to Marty. Marty can back me up on this. This is how things happen. You have a plan, right? We have these big plans every single day, operational plans. And I can tell you what, how long that lasts, right? Life is dynamic and life changes, much like all of
absolutely.
it. So we have to respond to constant change. So you're doing what we do behind the gates.
Thank you. Yes. Here, a retro picture taken today, August 22nd, 1966. Gus Grissom, Roger Chaffee, and Ed White on this moment today in space history out at North American in Downey, California. That's their spaceship or a test model or something behind it there that pulled this off of Wiki Commons. And I think the first thing that most of us notice is the helmet, Marty. Doesn't look like the Apollo helmet that they flew for some reason to me. Might have that visor thing might lock over there. I don't know. What do you think, Marty, about the helmets? But there's our guys. Of course, they lost their lives January 27th, 1967, almost 6 months later there. But this was today, and you talk about this, of course. There is the beautiful tribute there at the end. This is on the other side now of Lunar Module number 9 that Grumman built, and Marty was all over as an electrical engineer. And next time you're on, we'll talk a little more about that. It's a very unique tribute. First time through, I go, "Where's the hatch?" And because they have a screen in front of the mirror, the glass, that is a story, and then it dissolves in there, and all the cases are like that.
Yep.
And you said Calvin Manning helped design that, the
Calvin Manning,
deputy director under Janet Petroff.
Yep, he helped lead that project. And they did a fantastic job.
Yeah, it is
Absolutely
again.
fantastic job.
And we'll tour that maybe next time for you all when we have Chachi on again. Well, yes, Mitch Rothman. This is Jerry Carr's birthday, and he's on the far left there, a rookie commander. I believe he'd have been 89, Mitch, today. You know, Marty, we saw him out the Space Center about 6 months before he passed away. He was in the astronaut encounter. I don't know if you went out there and saw him. Did you?
No, I missed it.
I think that's before you got hooked on going out there and getting all your autographs, which is a lovely thing. Ed, in the middle there, Ed Gibson is still with us, and Bill Pogue on the right passed away. We've got Bill Pogue's book in our library here, signed and with a pencil that was flown to space.
Wow.
The lead in it on Skylab 3.
Wow.
And that is Ed Gibson doing the last EVA spacewalk of this wonderful program. Your thoughts about, again, the lessons we learned on these 3 quick days in space, 28, then 56, and this one was 84 days, are the same thing that's being applied into space station 50
Absolutely.
years
It
later.
really is. I mean, Skylab was just it's one of my favorites. It really is. And there's, you can't find much on it. You know, you really, it's hard to find a lot on Skylab in many ways, but it was an essential bridge to the future. It was America's first space station.
Mm-hmm.
The Soviets had launched their
Over.
Soyuz space station, but it was in the infancy in the early 70s. So in 1973, when Skylab flew in May, when it was launched, it was the first American space station, and it was very powerful. 3 crews visited there, increasing their stay. And we have to think, you know, back in those days, when you put yourself back in that perspective, you know, we had short space flights. You know, 2 weeks was about our top space flights. When you're talking going from 2 weeks to 3 months, that's pretty impressive, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, what's the body going to do over those 3 months? How do we live and work? How do you keep those folks alive? Not to mention then do the science and everything else their mission was to accomplish, astrophysical plus medical and the like. So a great program, and pioneers in their own right. And now we see ISS up there for 20 years and it's floating around over 20, and they're doing their work. But this was back when this was just starting to be a concept.
Mm-hmm. Marty, that's the last slide I'm going to show here. Is we've had a great program with Mike. I want time to ask him about the. I know that you were a NASA employee, so you're limited to what things you can really say. But the Boeing Starliner situation up there. I did a show yesterday where I was up in Appalachia, where I lived 35 years in Bristol, Tennessee, and one of my friends said they launched that without knowing they launched those people to space knowing their spaceship leaked. That's just ignorant, and here we have Butch Wilmer and Sonny Williams up there. Instead of 8 days, they're into their 80-something day up there, and sitting in the catbird seats you're at. How do you look at this Boeing Starliner situation?
Well, it shows space flight is one, it's hard, right? And things happen. So that's something we always train and practice for. It's a hostile environment in space, so you want to make sure you get it right. I think one thing that's feels good at what's happening, NASA is deeply involved in understanding what happened, from not only the engineering perspectives, but our whole safety community. They're deeply entrenched in the decision making in this. So this is a commercial space flight. We're flying NASA astronauts on a Boeing spacecraft. And NASA is deep involved in it and sharing as much expertise as they can to make sure the right decisions are made. So there's the final decisions of what we're going to go do, if those folks are going to come home on Starliner, if they're going to come home on Dragon, or how that's going to work. That's still working through the engineering and safety discussions. But it's heartwarming to see our teams, especially our NASA safety teams, working closely to make sure the right things are done. There's a host of things they consider, right? There's a host of things, but they want to get the answer right at the end of the day. So,
what do you think where the public says that they're stranded?
well, everything's in a definition of a word, right? So there's always plans. We don't put people on the station without having plans to get them all home. So there's ways to go do that. So there's the nuance of the words, I'll let the folks that do the public relations stuff kind of work the nuance of the words. It's not a situation that you would want to have a spacecraft that you got questions about, right? You'd love every spacecraft to be up on orbit on the station. There's no questions about its operability or its, right? You'd love that. It's like your car's in your driveway. You're like, I'm all running at full steam. Everything's going good. So when something's not quite at that level and there's concerns, it's something to think about and investigate. So that's not, an ideal situation. And NASA's committed to making sure the astronauts are okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's our bottom line, is to get those folks home. And how we get them home is going to be a safe vehicle. And we don't want to take chances with their lives. I mean, when we look at lessons learned, we can see the consequences of taking missteps and making decisions along the path that perhaps weren't the best decisions along the way. So if we are really going to embrace lessons learned and act upon them, it's one thing to learn a lesson learned, but if you don't do something with it,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's like a teenager, right? If you fall off your bike or something happens, Okay, but if you don't learn from it, it happens again. Well, you didn't learn, nothing good came from it. So we share these lessons very, very personally and very frankly. We don't sugarcoat what happened. The not only the technical failures, but what the decision making process behind it. And if it was a failed decision making process, we share that. Very
Mhm.
upfront about that. And so we're doing that with these teams and saying, hey, here's what your history tells you. Here's what went into some of these previous decisions. Some may have worked out okay, some didn't work out so well. Take those in consideration. Think about those as you're making these hard decisions, and let that be part of the input of the data that goes into making this ultimate decision, what we're going to go do. What you're going to come home on, when you're going to do it, how you're going to do it. So, Butch is a friend of mine. I know Butch well.
Do you? Okay.
So,
He's got 2 daughters and a wife, right?
right, and I want my friends to come home.
Yeah.
And when I think of the other crews that didn't, and I know their families very, very well, it bothers me to this day, right? In my
Okay.
stomach. So for me, I want them to come home. I know our leadership wants them to come home in the safest way possible. Again, space flight is not unsafe, right? There's always a risk involved. Of course, driving home today is going to be a risk for all of us, right, from work.
Yeah.
But we want to
Well,
buy down that risk as much as possible, and that's where these conversations are being talked about.
Chachi, you humanized it the way I keep telling Marty that we want to do on this program is, imagine the Wilmers, someone in their family's got a 50th wedding anniversary in September, and Butch, you're supposed to be back, just 8-day trip, and now you're up there. I mean, this affects
Yeah.
dominoes into families' lives. Not that they're unhappy that
Yeah.
their loved ones are doing a great job. Sonny Williams has been married to a Texas Marshal, I believe, for over 20 years.
Mm.
Again, he thought she was just going to be gone for maybe 3 weeks
Little
with the
vacation.
training and all,
Yeah.
and up in space. Both of them have been up in space over 10 years ago. I was very judgmental of what a waste of these talented astronauts to make them wait 10 years to fly again. And astronaut Kay Heyer at a luncheon said, "No, Mark, they're test pilots. This is what they live for. This is Kay Heyer said this Starliner was the same as the maiden flight of Columbia."
It's a test flight, right? It's the first manned flight. It had another unmanned flight or two, but right, it's a test flight. And these folks are so. I mean, you think about it, even going back to the X-15 and other different programs, the quality of the folks and the special nature of them that get into a vehicle that's being tested, that's pushing the envelope, right? It's in the edge, right? It doesn't matter if it's aeronautics or astronautics. It's pushing the envelope in so many different ways, and yet they have the ability and the strength and the training to go do that. And their hands aren't doing this, right? They're focused on the job. You can anything
Yeah.
from John Glenn, what he faced. I mean, you pick your flights, you can pick your stories, but they have that ability to go do that because they want to make sure that spacecraft is checked out or the aircraft is checked out and get it and fly it home. It's a special breed of people that do
Yeah,
that,
it is.
and it's a special breed of folks that on the ground that give them the best vehicle possible, and that's our job. Give them the very best vehicle to go fly because we know they have families. We know their families. We want when we look in their eye and say your vehicle is ready to the best of our ability. That's a personal contract you're making with the folks, and when they hop on board, that's your word, and we want to make sure that we live up to that.
Well, I've enjoyed great insight here from Mike Ciannilli. Marty, you've got a final question?
Yeah,
Or
we have a
two?
question from Carlton Bailey. Challenger had blow-by gases on O-rings. NASA said we've seen it before, never had a problem. Columbia had foam loss. NASA, we've seen before, but never been a problem or a big problem. Is this the attitude still?
Wow, great question and great synopsis.
Thank you, CB.
Yeah, I believe it is.
Oh.
Well, as far as understanding there's a problem, right? I think if I heard that question, I might have answered too quick. I think we recognize there was a problem in Challenger. That wasn't the first time there was O-ring damage, right? There's multiple flights. It was being worked on different levels, right? And we can spend a whole day on show on that too, of how things were noticed and maybe we thought we understood it better than we did. Maybe we didn't draw the right connections between temperature and other things. So there's a lot of nuance there, but it wasn't the first time. Columbia certainly wasn't the first time. STS2 had a significant event coming off on STS2,
Good
STS
Lord,
20,
27, yeah.
STS 27 with Atlantis. We certainly had an issue, and other flights as well. So it wasn't the first time. Just before Columbia flew, there was a flight that dented part of the solid rocket booster section area. So it wasn't the first time. And so what we do with that, Mark, is when we share with people, these weren't just one-off events. There was a legacy to this. So we share that with the younger folks or people working and say, well, how do you identify what you see today? How do you know out of all those issues you're dealing with? And there's, it wasn't just the O-ring issue over the years of foam. Every flight has a tremendous number of different issues in different ways. Everything does, right, in life. So you just don't have one issue and everything else is perfect. So you're managing all the different risks, you're managing the different concerns and managing the different problems that you're facing. So how do you pick out that, if you will, that one baseball coming out of the dark that's going to beat you in the head? You may be in a cage and there's 100 baseballs flying back, but there's one that's coming right for your forehead. In the dark, basically, how do you see that one when they're all coming at you at the same time and put the right resources and time and understanding in that one that's going to get you so you can get out of the way? It's kind of like that. So it's difficult. So we try to say, take these lessons learned where we knew about these in different levels. We missed it. The severity of them in some cases are misunderstood, or there's other explanations as well. But how do you recognize them coming to you? How do you identify them early enough and save the day so that doesn't hit you in the head? So a lot of this, again, to the viewer's question, there's issues every single day. Every single vehicle faces it. You can see now Starliner's facing. Everybody I know in the space business faces issues. It's normal, but it's what you do with those and how you mitigate those. You don't have endless resources, financial or personnel. So how to use those resources and focus them correctly in the right areas. There's a talent to that. It's not easy. But I think when you see specifically relating to your Starliner question, I think the agency's resources and put into understanding this scenario, what's happening on board the spacecraft with its systems, I think the attention that it's gotten, the emphasis it's gotten from our leadership is really heartwarming. And it makes me feel good that they're really concerned about this, that they want to get the answer right. Whatever that answer is, it'll be unfolding in the weeks to come, but that they're putting in the due diligence and the time to want to make sure they get the right answer to get them home safe. So it feels good that that's what's happening. I have a tremendous confidence that's what's happening. But again, there's issues every day coming at you, and you can't get complacent, because I tell you what, Murphy's Law will get you, and complacency will be something you pay a price for.
Well, with all the risk assessment, there's a fine line you have to cross, the risk taking.
Right.
And I think Carlton Bailey may be pointing out that they didn't do enough assessment to see what was going on there. But now, are they doing too much assessing on the Starliner? And but this was a drama that's unfolding, isn't it?
It is. It's a drama.
But you make me feel better that the management of NASA is going to. There'll be a lot of meetings and things going on when we get Butch and Sonny back safe.
There is, and that's good to know that the NASA's engaged in the conversation in partnership with Boeing, and they're working together on that. And there's no easy answers, right? There's a lot of complications when you think of that as well. There's complications with, you've got limited ports at the space station for vehicles to dock.
Yeah.
You've got other activities happening, so they're weighing a lot of
spacesuits are not compatible. The Boeing to fly back and the SpaceX.
So you're trying to protect all of you.
There's no problem. They'll send up 2 spacesuits in the next cargo ship.
Right.
And maybe they already have on Cygnus. I don't know.
When you're protecting all of your mission goals, you're protecting. There's risk in all different ways. You got flight risk and vehicle risk and crew risk, and you also have mission risk. And goals risk, right? What you're doing on the station. So they're weighing all of these things. Of course, some have higher priority. The safety of the crew is number one, but you're trying to analyze a lot of different layers of decision making into this equation, so it all kind of fits in a nice picture, because it is a complicated operation.
Well, I've enjoyed this conversation, Marty. I know you have too. We've got Gary Gerald watching in Collins, Georgia. Dave Stangy's up in Michigan. We got Mitch Rothman of Manned Space is in Colorado. Steve Jokums is up on Lake Michigan, up at his Lake County Spaceport is his
Excellent.
business
Wow.
that does decals for a lot of shuttle models. Doug Forrest, the wonderful artist out there in California. Tom Usiak is in Pennsylvania. Robert Law in Dundee, Scotland. Carlton Bailey is out at Canaveral Grove suffering from COVID. Hope that you're feeling better, Carlton. Tom Colbert, it's nice to see you joining Stay Curious today and your good questions. Tom Celentano, faithful watcher there. Bill, as is Bill Whiting up in Michigan. And Cliff Watson in Pomona, Australia. Cliff, thank you, buddy. From Australia here to the American Space Museum. Cliff sent me a shuttle book I've never seen. Marty's already looked it up to order it to get astronauts to sign it out there at the Space Center. Look at this, Chachi. It is a different take where it takes each mission in the order it was launched.
Oh, that's gorgeous.
Okay. There's, as you know, the numeric sequences of STS 107. The next one after it was 114. And then the next one after 114 was 108 and so forth. So what a book, Cliff. Thank you. God bless you and all you stand for. Sending me that from Australia.
Gorgeous.
Yeah.
Gorgeous book. Look at the pictures. I mean,
Oh, yeah. The pictures are just incredible. John Glenn's Return to Space. It kind of breaks them up in sections here. Oh, look at that. Whew. So Cliff Watson, thank you very much, sir. I appreciate that.
I may have to hold on to that for you for a few days. I don't.
Yeah, there
I'm
you
just
go.
kidding.
Yeah, take that
I'm
home
just
with
kidding.
you there.
It's beautiful.
You're very welcome to, my friend, because we appreciate you. I'm a rocket hobo today. Okay, we mourned the loss of Ozzy a year ago, our rocket hobo who brought us the 321 area code. Died, I think it was August 8th on there. So, and of course, Karen Conklin, our executive director, passed away, and we are mourning her. And her funeral service will be a week from Saturday, and we'll be talking all about that next week. Marty, thank you for a great job on Streamlabs there. Thank you all for your questions out there, and I can't thank you enough, my friend.
It's my pleasure.
What a fascinating guy, right? Everybody, your knowledge of space, you complimented mine, but wow, you're just like all of our listeners here. We're really into some of these details that do mean a lot when you think about the space age. So.
Well, and thank you to all the viewers. I love, one of the reasons I love coming on the show for not only you, Marty, and what you all do, but the viewers.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's just amazing. The questions I get every single time, they're on. These folks know what they're saying, and they bring a great perspective to it. So I always look forward to seeing what new questions are going to come on and what I'm going to learn from them. So thank you, all of you that to join for these shows, because you're really contributing to something very important, because you are protecting and preserving history in your own way. And this history is really important. I'm a little biased, but this is the nation's history, and this is the world's history, not just America's history, but as our folks in New Zealand and Australia can attest, this is part of mankind's history, and it's important that it's preserved. So thank you for doing that, and our viewers help. Right, your viewers help you do that.
Oh, they're amazing, and they support the museum financially too, as our humble nonprofit always needs help. And Chachi, it's having guests like you that lead us to other people that understand what we're doing is parallel to what you're doing, is preserving the birth of the American space age right here in this delivery room, folks, for Brevard County. So, Mike Ciannilli, Chachi, thank you so much for all you're doing. You have safe travels around the country, spreading the word as my rocket patch is coming off of there. But thank you all for watching. Stay curious. Thanks this guy. Check him out wherever you can. If you're giving a talk somewhere that's public, please let us know, and we'll announce it up there.
Absolutely.
And maybe get some of our fans up there. So
Absolutely.
Tomorrow's Friday, the end of another month here, getting close to the end of August. So we're going to look at some space history and look at the interesting flight of Jared Isaacman. his second trip to
wow.
flight and his second trip on a spaceship called Resilience Crew Dragon, as he and 3 rookies are going to space Monday morning at 3 a.m. So
Pretty exciting.
gonna lose some sleep on that one. I'm gonna stay up for that one. So,
Yeah.
again, thanking Mike Ciannilli for his support of our museum and thanking you for staying curious. I'm Mark Marquette saying I can't wait to see you tomorrow to bridge the space between us.